I was born and raised on the Yabba. It's the only life that I know. People around here put a name on me, and I hear it wherever I go. They call me River Girl, a stubborn fighting river girl. This whole world don't hold a whole lot of joy when you're fighting as a river girl. I do a lot of watching on the river to protect my country, you see. When the hydro men come with their concrete plans, the old people still call out to me, and they say, River girl, hey river girl, you got any fight left today there, river girl? They build their dams, but nobody cares about the heart wound of a river girl. There's a sacred turtle on the riverbank, I see her there every day. But when the floods come from the Borumba scheme, I can hear the ancestors say, come away from that river girl, she's a river girl, nothing but a troublemaking river girl. No future of mine's gonna waste its time on a good-for-nothing river girl. So I raise my voice back up the Yabba, back to my old fighting place. I'm afraid this old river's gonna overflow from the tears running down my face. I'm nothing but a river girl, a good-for-nothing river girl. This whole world don't hold a whole lot of joy when you're nothing but a river girl. This whole world don't hold a whole lot of joy when you're fighting for your river girl.
You mob, it's Gil'burri here. We are watching a compilation video of Gympie and Nambour and Noosa in the 1960s, 1966 to 1968 to be exact. Exactly 100 years to when gold was discovered in the Mary River and brought fucking havoc to our country.
There's a creek up in the hills where the water runs clear and cold, where the old ones held their ground and the stories still get told. Yabba Creek has seen it all, through the fire and the flood and the fight. Now they want to drown her deep for a dam that ain't worth the price. Stop Borumba Hydro, let the river keep her name. Stop Borumba Hydro, this ain't no corporate game. Country's our family, the lungfish and the turtle too. We won't let them steal the flow, we're standing here with you. The rainforest giants whisper when the wind moves through the trees. The Mary River's children need these banks to raise their young in peace. But the numbers on the page keep growing, 18 billion and still more, while the heart of this country's breaking right outside their office door. They tried it once at Traviston, and we sent that dream away. We can do it here on Yabba if we stand and have our say. There are other ways to power without breaking what is whole. Listen to the old ones calling, this is Cabby's sovereign soul. I can hear the water talking in the quiet of the night, saying, brother, sister, don't you let them take my life. We've got the fire in our blood and the truth upon our tongue. This fight belongs to all of us. every daughter, every son. Stop Borumba Hydro, let the river keep her name. Stop Borumba Hydro, this is more than just a game. For the ones who came before us, and the ones still yet to come, we will keep the waters flowing. Stop Borumba, we are one. Yabba Creek is calling. Stop Borumba Hydro.
Came across the water, chasing light at dawn. 19 summers burning, wild and far from home. Gil'burri whispers secrets on the singing sand. A red coat watched her gently from the edge of ancient land. She knelt without fear, heart open to the wild. Two dreamers in the morning, like mother and her child. But the current pulled her under, where the ocean keeps its own. And the headlines wrote their story in a cold and angry tone. It's not for 1,000 years, it's forever in the dreaming. Rock hard and the songlines still remember what they're singing. Don't blame the ancient ones for the greed that clouds outside. They were here before the boats came, running silent through the night. Tourists feed for selfies, 500,000 every year. Habituation rising, breeding danger, breeding fear. But y'all are called for limits, close the gates when pups are born. 25 years of warnings, trampled, scattered, torn. Piper loved the creatures, saw the spirit in their eyes. Now the pack stands accused, while the real killer hides. Autopsy still waiting, died tongues will tell the tale. If the sea took our sister, let the
All right, yeah, Mob, I'm just testing screen capture. Just testing. Let's check this time. And that should be enough.
You know, usually when we talk about the grand global transition to green energy, the narrative is presented as this really straightforward math problem.
Right, like it's just simple addition and subtraction.
Yeah, exactly. Like we just need to subtract fossil fuels from the grid, you know, add some wind and solar and build massive infrastructure to store it all. It's framed as this universally positive, almost moral imperative, like the ultimate rescue mission for the climate.
Yeah.
The macro solution.
Right. But what happens when the very infrastructure designed to save the planet on that macro level threatens to completely obliterate an ecosystem on a micro level? What happens when this frantic push for a green renewable transition collides head-on with critically endangered environments?
And, well, ancient unbroken indigenous sovereignty.
It's a profound paradox.
It really is. So welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're unpacking a situation where the supposed cure might actually just be as devastating as the disease.
And we're seeing this clash of priorities playing out in real time right now. It forces us to ask some deeply uncomfortable questions about, you know, what and who we're willing to sacrifice in the name of global progress.
Yeah, and to explore this, we have a really fascinating, heavily contrasting stack of sources to go through with you today.
Very contrasting.
Oh, absolutely. First, we have the official works notifications and these highly detailed project summaries straight from Queensland Hydro, regarding the Borumba Pumped Hydro Energy Storage Project. And these are current as of mid-June 2026.
Boots on the ground stuff.
Exactly. On the other side, we have excerpts, reviews, and transcripts from a highly critical indigenous-led resistance movement. And they run a podcast they actually describe as a frontline sovereign audio weapon.
Which is a powerful phrase.
It is, and their rhetoric pulls absolutely no punches. Finally, we have a fascinating technical exchange, like a Q&A format, regarding the engineering and chemistry of alternative hydro solutions. It features some really pointed questions from a citizen named Lynn Shaw.
Right, the alternative proposals.
Yeah. So our mission today is to map out the sheer terraforming scale of this infrastructure project, understand the deep cultural and ecological resistance pushing back against it, and, well, explore the mind-bending engineering alternatives being proposed.
But before we really get into the mechanics of this, I do need to calmly step in and explicitly state our mandate for the show.
Yeah, that's important here.
Very important. Yeah. When we're dealing with sources that are this politically and emotionally state government infrastructure mandates on one side and sovereign indigenous resistance on the other, our deep dive does not take sides.
Right.
We aren't here to endorse the viewpoints of Queensland Hydro, and we aren't here to validate or champion the claims of the resistance movement. We are simply dissecting the anatomy of a conflict.
Handing you the raw data.
Exactly. Our goal is strictly to analyze the factual claims, the engineering mechanics, the rhetoric, and the perspectives in the source material so you can form your own comprehensive understanding.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we need to start with the physical footprint of the Borumba project. The numbers attached to this they're difficult to wrap your head around.
They are massive.
Yeah. We are talking about a mega project located about 13 kilometers southwest of a town called Mimburi and roughly 48 kilometers southwest of Gympie in Queensland.
And the capacity is huge.
Right. It's designed to provide up to 2,000 megawatts of generation capacity for up to 24 hours. That equates to like 48,000 megawatt hours of storage.
To truly grasp what 2,000 megawatts means, you kind of have to look at the grid's underlying physics. You know, solar panels generate power when the sun shines, wind turbines generate power when the wind blows.
The classic renewable problem.
Right. But an electricity grid is a real-time balancing act. Supply must exactly match demand every single second, or the whole system collapses.
Blackouts.
Exactly. And this is where pumped hydro comes in. It acts as a colossal, gravity-powered physical battery.
So how does it actually work in practice?
Well, when you have excess solar energy baking the grid at noon, you use that really cheap electricity to physically pump millions of liters of water from a lower reservoir up a mountain to a higher reservoir.
So you're basically converting electrical energy into potential energy.
That's it, exactly. Then, when the grid is desperate for power, say, at 7 p.m. on a windless winter evening when everyone turns on their heating, you open the gates.
And gravity takes over.
Right. That water rushes back down through massive turbines to generate dispatchable electricity.
Okay, so gravity does the heavy lifting. But to hold enough water to power those turbines for a full 24 hours, Queensland Hydro is proposing to build a brand new dam wall 300 meters downstream of the existing Borumba Dam.
Yes, and the official framing in our sources is fascinating here.
It really is. The government heavily promotes this project as, quote, leveraging an existing reservoir. They repeatedly point out that this site and its specific topography were identified as suitable for hydro literally decades ago.
So they present it as a logical, highly efficient upgrade.
Yeah, and an upgrade to infrastructure that's already sitting there in the landscape. But the documentation outlines an immense construction effort.
Oh, it's staggering. It's an entirely new upper reservoir with main and saddle dams. A cavernous underground power station carved right into the bedrock.
Miles of subterranean pressure tunnels.
Exactly. Surface switch yards, sprawling construction camps.
I really have to push back on that existing reservoir framing, though. The documentation states this new wall will expand the size of Lake Borumba's reservoir by 500%.
500%.
Yeah, bringing it to a massive 224 gigaliters. Think about what a 500% expansion actually means for a second.
It's a total transformation.
Right. Imagine you live near a quiet local lake. Now imagine a fleet of earth movers arriving to flood the entire valley, literally swallowing the next 5 towns over, just to make it bigger.
That's a great analogy.
The resistance pushes back incredibly hard on this bureaucratic language. At what point does a 500% expansion stop being an upgrade to an existing footprint and become an entirely new geological feature?
You're fundamentally terraforming the region. I mean, the physics of a 224 gigaliter body of water are immense. You're introducing an astronomical amount of weight onto a fault block.
Which can cause earthquakes, right?
Well, it can induce microseismic activity, yeah. And you're fundamentally altering the local microclimate. You're changing the humidity and evaporation rates of the entire valley.
Wow.
And doing that requires acquiring and clearing vast tracts of land that have been above water for millennia.
And that level of terraforming comes with a staggering financial cost.
Yeah.
The official estimated investment listed in the documentation is $14.2 billion.
$14.2 billion,
Yeah.
and the resistance sources flag that as laughably conservative.
Oh, yeah. The ink on that estimate is barely dry before they argue the project is already in classic blowout territory. They're suggesting it's aggressively trending toward $18 billion or more.
Which, when you study the history of megaprojects, those budget escalations are almost baked into the model.
Exactly. The cost of raw concrete, specialized steel, skilled labor, it rarely goes down over a decade-long build.
But the proponent counters that cost anxiety by highlighting the economic stimulus. The documents project the creation of 2,360 full-time equivalent jobs during the peak of the construction phase.
Yeah, but they also disclose that once the facility is built, the ongoing operational workforce drops to just 30 jobs.
30. That's quite a drop.
That is the textbook definition of a boom and bust cycle. You flood a small rural town like Imbil with thousands of specialized transient workers, heavy machinery, and a temporary flood of capital.
It completely rewrites the socioeconomic fabric of the town.
Rents skyrocket, local services are strained, and then, a few years later, the circus leaves town, leaving behind a massive concrete monolith managed by 36 technicians.
Right. And a $14 billion blueprint doesn't just sit on a desk waiting for years of bureaucratic debate.
No, they're already moving earth, which leads directly to what's happening right now in June 2026.
The timeline is the crucial ignition point for the conflict we're analyzing. According to the official notifications from Queensland Hydro, the rollout of what they call early works is happening right now as of mid-June 2026.
Under a banner of, quote, transparent engagement.
Yes. They're publishing detailed lists of physical activities and the disruptions locals should expect.
And the scale of these early works is intense. They're currently doing aerial LiDAR and mobile laser scanning. They're running non-intrusive geophysical surveys through July.
And cadastral surveys, right?
Yeah, land and cadastral surveys, basically mapping exact property boundaries, running straight through to November 2026.
LiDAR is particularly vital for a project of this scale. It stands for light detection and ranging.
So how does that work exactly?
Aircraft fly over the valley, firing millions of laser pulses down through the forest canopy. By measuring how long it takes for the light to bounce back, engineers create a hyper-accurate 3D topological map of the bare earth beneath the trees.
So it strips away the forest digitally.
Exactly. It tells them exactly how the water will flow, where the bedrock is weakest, and exactly how many cubic tons of earth need to be excavated.
But they aren't just mapping. They're actively tearing up the landscape to support the coming invasion of heavy machinery.
Right. The infrastructure prep.
The notifications detail the construction of new truck turnaround facilities, massive road maintenance, the replacement of rural cattle grids with industrial-grade infrastructure.
And relocating signage along specific haulage routes.
Yeah, they explicitly lift Yabba Creek Road, Bella Creek Road, Yilo Road out near Gympie, Kilcoy-Mergen Road, Sunday Creek Road, Borgen Road, and Old Yabba Road.
We are talking about taking quiet, single-lane dirt tracks and transforming them into arterial veins for dump trucks.
And the proponent is upfront about the localized disruption. They formally warn the community to expect changed traffic conditions, localized noise, pervasive dust, and ground vibration.
They also note that a cultural heritage survey is ongoing until July 2026.
The documentation describes this process somewhat clinically, right?
Very clinically. It just notes it involves workers on foot, followed by a safety vehicle.
What's fascinating here is the crucial regulatory context. According to our sources, Queensland Hydro received Commonwealth approval under the EPBC Act, that's the Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act, in December 2025.
But that approval was strictly limited to exploratory works.
Exactly. The full environmental impact statement, the massive EIS document that calculates the total devastating cost of the final dam, is still just a draft.
The terms of reference for that draft were only finalized in August 2024.
So if the massive $14 billion dam isn't fully approved yet, why build truck turnarounds and upgrade cattle grids?
That is the billion-dollar question.
It's like letting a guest renovate your guest room while you're still deciding if you want to rent it to them at all.
The resistance seizes on this timeline. Their core argument is that by executing these massive physical infrastructural upgrades right now, the proponent is aggressively creating facts on the ground before the full environmental and cultural scrutiny is even complete.
They view the June notifications as the start of a physical invasion.
Betting on momentum to carry the project through, they argue that the government is relying on the sunk cost fallacy.
Right. Because once hundreds of millions are spent.
Exactly. Once the money is poured into these early works and the landscape is already scarred, the project becomes, quote-unquote, too big and too expensive to cancel.
Which effectively renders the final EIS a meaningless bureaucratic formality rather than a genuine go-no-go gate.
That's their perspective, yes.
And the pushback to those trucks rolling in is fierce. Because to the people resisting this, those very specific roads, Yabba Creek and Bella Creek, aren't just lines on a municipal map.
They are a battleground.
They are the arteries of a deeply rooted cultural and ecological resistance. The resistance movement identifies deeply as being of the Kabi and Gil'burri bloodline.
And they completely reject the government sanitized language of infrastructure upgrades.
Yeah, they frame this mega project not as progress, but as a violent colonial wound being carved into sovereign country.
To understand their stance, you really have to look at the historical context provided in their podcast transcripts. They align their current fight with the spirit of the original Gil'burri.
Who was Gil'burri?
They described him as a deeply significant historical figure. He was adopted into the culture, bore traditional Mulgur scars, and lived in kinship alongside 22 Wichya, which they identify as dingoes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And he participated in the ancient Bunya feasts, which were massive regional gatherings for trade, law, and ceremony. And he physically fought in the Black War against early colonizers and the native police.
So they're drawing an unbroken, visceral line from that 19th century armed resistance straight to the blockades against the Borumba Hydro project today.
Exactly. This isn't just a standard environmental protest about carbon emissions. It's framed as an unbroken line of sovereign defense.
So when Queensland Hydro's official notification lists a cultural heritage survey as simply being workers on foot followed by a safety vehicle, you can imagine how that is received.
The resistance views it as a deeply offensive box-ticking exercise. They refer to it as gammon.
Gammon.
Yeah, it's a term widely used in Indigenous Australian English to mean fake, pretend, or fundamentally dishonest.
Right. They argue that a few workers walking the road corridor does not constitute free, prior, and informed consent.
They call these surveys the thin edge before the dozers.
And the ecology they are defending isn't just abstract nature. The sources detail the exact footprint of the project. We're talking about a total disturbance of 1,481 hectares.
And crucially, 297 hectares of that is lowland subtropical rainforest.
Which is an ecosystem already classified as critically endangered. But it's the specific ancient species living in the firing line that really stand out on the sources.
They focus heavily on the high-value in-stream habitats of Yabba Creek.
Right, the deep shaded pools and ancient submerged logs. This is the stronghold of the Australian lungfish.
The lungfish is a biological marvel. It's a living fossil that has survived virtually unchanged since the Devonian period.
That's hundreds of billions of years ago, right?
Yeah. And unlike most fish, it has a single lung and can breathe atmospheric air, allowing it to survive in stagnant, slow-moving pools.
The resistance refers to the lungfish not just as an endangered animal, but as kin. Specifically, the three brothers Dreaming Totem and their ancient, quote, bum breather kin.
They also highlight the critically endangered Mary River turtle. What is fascinating about this turtle is its highly specific nesting requirements.
Right. They rely on tiny, precious, sandy, exposed banks across the catchment to lay their eggs.
And if you build a massive pumped hydro dam upstream, you fundamentally alter the flow of the river, the sediment transport, and the water temperature.
You essentially drown those tiny nesting habitats, or you starve them of the sand they need to regenerate.
Precisely. They also mention the Mary River cod, which is an apex predator of the river system that is already hanging by a thread.
Now, what's fascinating is the historical parallel mentioned in the sources. The inclusion of these three specific species, the lungfish, the Mary River turtle, and the Mary River cod, carries massive historical weight in Queensland politics.
It absolutely does. The resistance explicitly points out that this exact same ecological package was the catalyst for stopping the infamous Traviston Crossing Dam back in 2009.
I remember that. That mega dam was championed by the state government, too.
But it was ultimately vetoed by the federal government under the EPBC Act because the localized extinction risk to these ancient species was deemed entirely unacceptable.
So the resistance is laying down a pretty brutal logical challenge here. If the lungfish and the turtle were important enough to halt a multi-billion-dollar water project in 2009, by what logic are they suddenly expendable for a pumped hydro project in 2026?
It's a compelling argument. And the scope of their ecological argument is vast. They don't just look at the dam wall, they follow the water.
Right. They map out how the sediment, the turbidity, and the altered flow regimes kicked up by years of heavy construction will bleed down the Mary River system.
It will travel for miles, ultimately dumping into the Great Sandy Strait and choking the pristine beaches of the island, Kagari.
The Resistance podcast goes into granular detail regarding this downstream connection. They view the Borumba project not as an isolated construction zone, but as, well, the final blow in a broader pattern of colonial mismanagement.
They connect the upstream dam to the current crisis on Kagari. They cite 13 years of deliberate fire neglect, the deployment of idle surveillance drones over sovereign land,
And the devastating impacts of tourism on the Wicha, the island's dingo population.
They even cite horrific forensic details in the podcast, like finding deadly rodenticide used to protect luxury tourist villas at Kingfisher Bay in the digestive tracts of deceased dingoes.
It's just staggering to imagine the sheer geographical scale of the impact, how a dam wall inland can theoretically alter the hunting grounds of dingo packs on an island miles away down the river system.
It highlights a core philosophical divide. The contrast in language is striking.
The proponent calls it, quote, minimizing potential impacts on natural, cultural, and community values. It sounds so manageable, like adjusting a spreadsheet.
Whereas the resistance calls it scarring the land, a colonial heart wound.
Yeah. Engineering documentation inherently views the landscape as a resource to be optimized and managed through mitigation